Back to the Mintner method. I'm Andrew Mintner, and on today's episode, we're going to break down the game of the week, Tennessee versus Georgia. Now, I apologize. It's been a couple weeks since I made some videos. I did a live stream 2 weeks ago, and I just had a busy, time in my personal life, and family is more important than anything to me. So yeah, that's that. So we're gonna try to make several videos this week. I'm starting early, releasing on a Monday. So if you have any suggestions, you can get them in early this week, and I can go ahead and get to them. But we're gonna start out fresh with the best game of the week, and the game with the most implications playoff wise. So this is a very interesting game to me, to say the least. I've been on both sides of Tennessee and Georgia this year, and I feel like this being the most wide open college football season of my lifetime, I feel like there's a lot of things we can take from this game. So rolling into the early down matchups here, you can see that Tennessee on offense has been. This has been the story all season. They have been abysmal on offense. Nico just cannot seem to grasp the system. And I think that, he's definitely good enough. He is just, he's taken so many hits. He's been through under so much pressure. It really is just that type of, it's kind of sticking with him. And he is playing like a freshman. And that's that's unfortunate because this defense is arguably a top 3 defense in the entire country. And Tennessee has shown that, they're first overall in early downs EPA, and this is against Power 5 teams. So this is out of the 70 Power 5 teams, including Notre Dame. So that's a lot to say. Now, obviously, their schedule hasn't been as brutal as like Georgia's schedule has been, but we're going to dive into this even deeper, and I still think there's a case to be made that, their defense has played well, And so when we come to the advanced stats side of the ball, there's a lot of things that I kind of want to look at. So Tennessee, this is not the Tennessee offense that we're used to. They are normally extremely explosive based off the way they align their players on the field and, just the way they attack defenses and attack leverage. They just have not been able to get there explosively wise. Now, when we're looking at the overall here, when running the ball, stuff rate, line yards, very solid. Front 7 havoc allowed. That's not elite, but that's not shitty. That's not terrible. But when we get into the efficiency side of it, 79th in rushing efficiency, 113th in explosiveness, and then 33rd in passing efficiency and 66th in passing explosiveness. So this is the thing that really sticks out to me, okay? They're there, doing well, throwing the ball. It's just not showing up enough. Efficiently wise, they're going to be able to make some plays simply by just the schematic advantage they have in this offense. So the thing that really stands out to me when I'm looking at Georgia, and I kind of feel this way overall, is they're just not, this isn't an elite Georgia defense or offense, mind you. We'll get to that in a second. But the thing is, they showed up against Texas and they beat Texas. And the reason I felt like they had just a big advantage against Texas was because of the way Texas's offense is schematically drawn up. This Tennessee offense is not like that. They are going to take shots down the field, and this is not a dink and dunk offense. Now, obviously, these shots down the field, they have not completed a lot of them, and they've looked horrendous doing it. But, again, it takes less things to get right when you actually are going to take those chances down the field than trying to string together 7 or 8 plays on a very good defense, right? So looking, one thing that stands out, 100th in defensive back havoc. I'm not going to try to beat that home as some gigantic weakness. It is just something a little different than what previous Kirby Smart defenses have produced. They've produced like ball hawking corners, safeties, linebackers, and that's just not kind of what's happening, this year. Now, they are decent in limiting explosiveness. They're average, and efficiency-wise, they're pretty solid. So when we come to the other side, Georgia, the thing that worries me about their offense in this matchup is their offensive line and Carson Beck in general. And we're going to dive into him here in a minute also. The stuff rate and the offensive line yards is a huge red flag. Now, they were able to kind of take advantage of Texas in this area, and they did a lot of quick game and things of that nature, and they were able to run the ball, which was their saving grace, being that Beck had 3 picks in that game. But the thing is here, they're not explosive. So 108th in passing, 94th in rushing. And so you're going to have to, again, matriculate the ball down the field against a very good elite defense in Tennessee. And they're elite across the board. Like, they're good at everything. The thing they're worst in is rushing explosiveness, and that's not even like they're really bad. They're just a little below average. You would like them to be better, per se. But other than that, we don't even know if they can take advantage of that, Georgia. So when we go to the passing game profiles, this is probably where the game's going to be decided in general. Okay, so Georgia, this is a thing I've highlighted at least a dozen times this year. I am not a fan of offenses that love to throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage. Anything over 25%, I just cannot get behind. I mean, unless you are elite at it, like Oregon, which I still don't like, or like you can see, Georgia Tech's really good at it, like North Carolina. Like if you're not, excuse me, if you're not elite at it, it is a wasted play. I mean, a awful wasted play. To give you an example, okay, the average EPA on Power 5 teams on a pass thrown behind the line of scrimmage is negative .110, okay? Now, the average for a short attempt, which is literally 1 to 9 yards, is positive .118. That is such a gigantic difference in just throwing the ball forward. Like that's just insane, But anyway, I digress, okay? So Georgia is 4th overall in doing this, and they're only 28th in EPA, and that's a negative EPA, all right? And so then they're also like very low in the short game, 1 to 9 yards, 68% or 68th out of 70, 29.7%. All right, so that puts them at 41st in Mickey Mouse attempts, which is, passes 9 yards or less. Now, when we go down to Tennessee, you have a completely different profile, right? So they throw the ball behind the line of scrimmage 20.9% of the time, which is 22nd overall. But vastly, those percentage points make a huge difference, and you're going to see here in a minute why. And they're 58th in short game, 1 to 9 yards. But they're actually pretty good throwing the ball short, 1 to 9 yards. So something like you would actually probably like them to do a little more rather than the screen game. But anyway, let's look down the field, okay? And Georgia, and this is the Carson Beck thing, man. Like, they're 57th in EPA in medium pass attempts, which is 10 to 19 yards, and they're 34th in deep attempts. Now, I know you're like, oh, well, those are positive EPAs. That's great. Yeah, but that's not going to be good enough. Like, these are average to below average numbers against Power 5 teams, the teams that they are going to see coming into the playoff and obviously this weekend, And so that puts them at 52nd overall in EPA per pass that is 10 yards or more down the field. All right, so then we come to Tennessee, right? And so one thing that I'm going to stand up for always is throwing the ball down the field, even if you're not good at it. Like, it's still such a positive EPA going forward that it makes a huge difference. They're 58th in passes in the medium range, but they're 4th in attempts. So they're going to fire in those ranges. And then they're 12th in deep percentage and 48th in EPA. So even though they're still attempting the ball down the field, 4th in big dog throw percentages. So they are throwing the ball 10 yards or more in the air 45% of the time. So that they are at least challenging the defense. Now, I know you're like, yeah, well, Nico looks like dog shit. Like, yeah, I understand all of that. But eventually, these passes are going to come to fruition. Like, he is a top-rated recruit for a reason. Like, I know, recruits bust and stuff. Like, that does happen. But, he's not all of a sudden forgotten how to throw a football. Like, it's just, he's a freshman. He hasn't had a lot of time. He's had a lot of, misses. But, I mean, that's going to happen. Not everybody's going to come out and, just be a freshman phenom. Like, it's just not real. Like, not everybody's Andrew Luck. That's not going to happen, right? So the thing is, we got to look at the defensive side of the ball, too. Okay, like I had said before, Georgia is living in the short area, right? So let's see. Their highest, I believe that's their highest depth, 31%. Let me check the other one, just to make sure I don't want to. Yeah, by far. Like, throwing it behind the line of scrimmage is their highest, category. All right, so Tennessee is elite in 9 yards or less. I mean, they're second overall, 4th in behind the line of scrimmage EPA. So that type of shit is not gonna work. It's just not gonna work. Not throwing it 31% of the time. That shit is not gonna work. Okay, so when we look at Georgia, they're also solid in the short area. Very good in the 1 to 9 yard. A little bit above average in the behind the line of scrimmage, but still a negative EPA. So you kind of have to take that with a grain of salt, right? But when we're looking down the field, this is where it changes a little bit. Now, 40th, 45th, and 41st out of 70 does not seem like a horrendous rating. But the thing is, this is bad when you're looking at top-tier teams. This is not good. The teams that could take advantage of this, a la Ole Miss, a la Alabama, the teams that threw in those depths at a high frequency, dominated the secondary in those areas. And this is just saying, even though Tennessee has not done well doing that, they are still going to take those chances. Josh Heupel is not going to change his game plan because it's going, sideways, all right? Now, with all that being said, they are still going to run the ball at a high clip because that is the basis of their offense. They're going to run at a high rate. That's just how they play. Now, another thing to look at here is we're going to go to 3rd and 4th down EPA. All right, so when we go to Georgia, they are 35th on offense and 3rd down and 4th down EPA. They're pretty decent rushing it, very bad passing on 3rd down, a negative EPA, which is, again, we could beat this home all day. And then when we go to Tennessee, they are pretty bad on 3rd down also. Really bad at rushing the ball on 3rd down because it becomes predictable, right? So when we flip to the defensive side of the ball, Georgia is very good on 3rd down. That is not surprising. Kirby Smart has always had one of the best 3rd down packages. And then lo and behold, Tennessee is extremely good on 3rd down too. So the thing is, this is going to be a game that is probably decided, in my opinion, on big plays. Like those type of plays that change the fabric of the game. Now, I know Nico is coming off a head injury, and they are all accounts saying that he is good to go. This is on Monday also, so there's no waffling. I'm feeling good that he's going to be good to go. All right, and so when we come over here, let's take a look at a couple of things schedule-wise. All right, now Georgia has played an absolutely fucking brutal schedule. Clemson on the road at Alabama, on the road at Texas, on the road to Mississippi. Those are brutal schedules. Not to mention they had Florida, Kentucky. But here's the thing, okay? Even though these are tough games, even though they beat Texas, which they schematically matched up well against, they have not looked good at all this season. There is nothing about this team that makes me think that they are winning a national championship. Nothing whatsoever. I kind of hinted at that at the beginning of the season. I felt like they were still going to be really good, but they were going to play an infinitely harder schedule than they played last year, and we would just have to find out. Now, let's go to this passing log for Carson Beck. This is a crucial thing to take a look at, okay? Look at the amount of fucking interceptions. Like, this is insane to me, okay? Looking at the last 4 games, he has 5 touchdowns to 6, 8, 9 interceptions. And somehow they are 3-1 in those games. Like, this is just not going to cut it, man. Like, it's just not going to get it done. Like, the reason they beat Texas is because of their defense, easily. Like, I agree, in their run game. But, like, this is just not going to get it done. Like, it's not going to be good enough against Tennessee if he shows up with one of these games. Okay? Now, when we look at the never mind, I don't want to look at Carson Beck's rushing game log. But when we look at, what they need to do running the ball, there isn't anything here that is showing they are astronomically better at running the ball. Like, this, and it shows, like, these two statistics here, stuff rate and line yards, are rushing statistics. 112th and 101st. Look at this game log. There's no shock here that they have not done well running the ball this year, regardless of who they've played. It does not matter. They didn't run it well against Auburn. They didn't run it well against fucking, Florida, to be perfectly honest. Like, the 4.4 yards is fine, but that's not good enough. Like, that's not going to be good enough in these environments. Now, the only caveat here is Georgia is going to be home for this game. And, home field advantage in college does matter. It's a big thing. It's not really as much in the pros, but the thing for me here is Tennessee has not looked great. They've won some close games, but coming back from the Arkansas loss, they beat Florida, they beat Bama, Kentucky, Mississippi State. They had this stretch here, Florida and Alabama, where they were just struggling to make it happen, right? To scoring, right? And so the thing is, though, let's take a look at their rushing. Okay, lots of rushing. They're committed to running the ball all times. And, even though these aren't fantastical numbers, because they are not, they are still much better than what Georgia has put up to this date running the ball. And then when we look at the pass game, Nico has not been great. But the thing is, even though he has not been great, he has not turned the ball over. Like, 4 turnovers, 4 interceptions. Like, he is not turning it over. Now, like, these yardages are mind-boggling when you look at the previous, Hendon Hooker, even Joe Milton was doing better in this system than Nico was. Nico is, excuse me. But, the identity of this team is the defense, and that is obvious. It's been obvious since basically, I'd say, the Oklahoma game. And anybody with 2 eyes can see that. And that's fine. But they are still taking shots down the field, which makes a big difference. They are not afraid. They're not playing not to lose, if that makes sense. They're playing to win games. So we need to look at one more thing for Georgia and their defensive rushing game log. And they've done pretty well. I will say they've done well, averaging 3 and 3.3 yards per carry. The thing is, they struggled against Georgia, Georgia struggled against Alabama simply because, Jalen Milroe is a mobile quarterback. And because he's a mobile quarterback, like, he makes them that much, it makes it that much harder for them, basically. Nico is not really that. He's not going to, get out there and make them miss and whatnot like that. Dylan Sampson is obviously their best rushing threat. And so, like, that'll be kind of the make or break part of it. But the thing is, in this game, the fucking spread is 9.5. Like, this is astronomically high to me. And I know when we look at the schedule here, Tennessee hasn't really played much. They beat Alabama when Alabama was reeling, and I understand that. That looks like, okay, well, they lost. They've lost to Arkansas on the road, and this is their only other real road game outside of when they beat Oklahoma, and nobody thinks Oklahoma is good because they are not. So, like, how are they going to show up here? I cannot. Maybe it makes me square, but I cannot take Georgia here laying 9.5 points. Even though this is a game that if Georgia loses this game, they are not making the college football playoff. They are not getting in with 3 losses. I know everybody's like, beating the table like, oh, well, it's Georgia. 3 losses, they would still beat almost anybody. It doesn't matter. Like, 3 losses, and they have not looked good. It's not like they got unlucky in 3 games. The games they've lost, they deserve to lose. The 2 games. I mean, they trailed they were only leading the Alabama game for 13 seconds, and Ole Miss absolutely just manhandled them in the trenches. So, I think here this is kind of what we were saying before, right? We don't want to turn teams into, like, square peg round hole. Like, oh, can they take advantage of these weaknesses? When we're looking here at Tennessee in a game that's this close, in my opinion, that the defenses will more than likely decide, and the quarterback play, obviously, that's like cliche enough, but it's going to come down to probably a handful of plays. And Tennessee is willing to take those chances down the field. And I'm going to side with that in 9.5 points. Now, do I think they're going to win? I'm not going to say, go get your rent money and put it on Tennessee to win. I'm not going to be irresponsible and say that. But sitting here in a game that will be decided defensively more than likely and by a handful of offensive plays, I'm going to side with Tennessee because I'm not going to believe that Georgia is going to manhandle them and just, be able to matriculate these long 10-play drives on that defense. I don't think that's going to happen. There's too much to play for. I just don't think that's going to happen. This game is going to be much closer than people anticipate, and I think Georgia has some weaknesses and has not shown much strength this year. Tennessee, on the other hand, they have shown strength, and the weaknesses that they have are fixable. Like, they're not like they're not like systematic weaknesses. Like, they're just bad. They're just unlucky in those areas down the field where they have normally thrived, even with lesser quarterback play. So, but anyway, guys, thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. If you like the content, please, or if you enjoy the content, please like, subscribe, share the video with a family member, a friend. Again, like, we've been on a little bit of a hiatus, but we're going to crank up the content coming down the road to conference championships. And, I'm excited to be back and dive into these games deeper than normal. And if you have any suggestions, please put them, comments on the video. I will get to every suggestion that is made on this video because it's early enough in the week. So if there's an obscure game you want me to cover, I will cover it. Like, I have the data, I have the stats to look at it, and I'll do my best to break it down and give you a suggestion. All right. Well, other than that, thank you again for watching. Thanks for listening, and I'll catch you on the next one. Take care.